Hi, this is Kelly from paperbeadrollers.com, and by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what size and shape to cut your paper strips to get the exact kind of cone bead that you want. From this little itty bitty baby bead to this big, huge, chunky pendant bead. So let's get started.
Cone-shaped paper beads are just fun. I mean, come on, admit it. They're an odd shape, and they make for great conversation pieces. Plus, there are all kinds of non-jewelry things you can do with cones. I've got some videos coming up on projects like that, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and then the bell if you want to get notifications when they're posted. Now you can make cone-shaped paper beads with a normal triangular-shaped strip, but some people find it a bit easier to roll cones with a strip where one corner has a right angle on it. Now I've tested and experimented, and from a finished bead perspective, I don't think it really matters. I mean, it's almost impossible to tell which kind of strip was used for a cone. Now, I'm going to use strips with a right angle for this video. If you're using regular triangle strips, there really is no difference in how you'll roll your cone-shaped paper beads. If you purchase the download file for your cutting machine, like the Cricut or Brother ScanNCut from paperbeadrollers.com, those strips have the right angle, just like the ones I'm using in this video. Now I'm going to roll each of the strips you see in front of you to show you how the length and width of a strip impacts the final shape of the cone bead. By the end of this video, you'll have a good understanding of exactly how to cut your strips to get the exact size and shape of cone bead that you want for your project. All of the paper I'm using in this video is 65-pound paper, but this will work with any weight of paper, from tissue to cardboard. Our first strip is going to be 2 1/4 inch wide at the top and 11 inches long. I'm going to use the blue 1/8 inch bead roller from paperbeadrollers.com. Now find the 90-degree angle and slide it into the slot on the bead roller, and we'll start to roll. Now, when you have a paper strip that's a little longer than your bead roller, you may have to use your fingers to help it turn without ripping. And once it does turn, you can kind of shape it up a little there at the end. And there we go. Try to keep the side of the strip that's down by your handle straight, and that will give you the beautiful natural cone shape as you roll. Now, if it doesn't line up exactly, that's okay. The wider these strips are, the more they fight you, I'll tell you. Now we can adjust it after we're done rolling, so it's not that big of a deal if it's not exact. When you get to the end of the strip, add a little bit of glue. And then just pop it off the roller. Now I can use my thumb to line up the edge of the strip, or press it on the back of the bead roller, or I can even just press it down on the table to flatten it out. You'll notice that once the edge of the bead is flat, the width of the strip is going to equal the height of your cone. The length of your strip is going to dictate the circumference of the cone, or how big around it is. Now you're going to see that better as we move on. So let's go to the next size of strip. Now we're going to roll another 11-inch strip, but this one is 1.5 inches wide. Again, I'll put the 90-degree angle down and roll it, keeping my straight side as even as possible. This one is a little bit easier to roll. The thinner they are, the easier they are to roll, in my opinion. You'll also have a tighter spiral. Now the end on this one isn't completely flat, so I need to adjust it. Again, the height of my cone is the same as the width of my strip. And if I compare this to the last one I rolled, you'll see that the circumferences match exactly. Why? Because both of those strips were 11 inches long. And remember, the length of the strip is what defines the circumference. Now let's do the next strip, and you'll see this in action again. Now this next strip is 1 inch wide and 11 inches long. I'm going to find that 90-degree angle and start to roll. Now from this point forward, I am going to fast forward all of the rolling parts so this video doesn't get too long. I promise I am not this fast at rolling beads, trust me. And again, the bead is as tall as the width of the strip, and the circumference matches the other cones that were made with these 11-inch strips. When you look at these finished beads, I mean, you would never think that they were the same circumference at a glance, but when you put them next to each other, they really are because, again, they were both from 11-inch strips. Here are all 5 of the cone beads we just rolled side by side. All of these strips were 11 inches long, so all of these beads have the same circumference around. Now, what if we want a smaller cone bead? How do we do that? This strip is about 5.5 inches long and 2.25 inches wide, so it's the same size as that very first bead we rolled. But because this strip is a shorter length, I'm going to use the green bead roller, which is the smallest bead roller we currently make. So I'm going to roll this one and put a little glue on the end. Flatten it out, and you'll see that we get the same thing. The cone is 2.25 inches tall, but let's compare it to that very first cone we rolled. See how this bead is much thinner? The shorter strip equals a smaller circumference around. This is a 1/4 inch width. And look at this, it's a little bitty baby. I love tiny little paper beads. But again, even though it's so tiny in height because of the width of the strip, it was 5.5 inches long, so the circumference is the same as these other beads that we've made. Cool, right? Now you're getting to see how this works. Right, so what if we want to do the opposite? What if we want a nice big fat cone bead, something we could use as like a pendant or the centerpiece of a project? Well, what do? We want to increase the circumference of the cone bead. We add to the length of the strip. There's 2 ways that we can do this. The first way is to double up on the strips. So I'm going to take the very first strip we rolled, which is a 2.25 by 11 inch, and I'm going to stack 2 of them together. Now this is a bit difficult to roll because it's kind of stiff, and the strips will not stay exactly lined up when you're using 2 of them because of the thickness. So be sure to get the glue on both ends and press them down firmly. So you end up with a cone with this pretty neat double spiral look. Now here's the second way to do it. Here I used 2 sheets of 12-inch paper to create a 22-inch strip. It's 2.25 inch on the wide end and it goes down to a point. You can see here where they join perfectly in the middle. I'll roll the first half and glue down the end. And now I'll glue down the second half. I like to wait a second for the glue to dry and hold my second strip in place before I roll. Then I'll roll it and tack it down. Now if we compare the finished beads from these 2 methods, you can see that they're exactly the same height and circumference because the strips we used were the exact same width at the beginning, 2.25 inches, and the same total length. So even though in the first bead we used 2 strips that were 11 inches long, and in this other bead we used 1 strip that was 22 inches long, the total strip length in each bead was 22 inches. 2 strips that were 11 inches equals 22 total inches. Do you see how that works? So the only difference in the methods is how the spiral pattern looks on the outside of the beads. Now we'll take this to the extreme to get ourselves a bead that we can use as a pendant or a centerpiece. I'm going to take 5 strips that are 1/4 inch wide and 11 inches long, and I'm going to stack them together. Now if you've been paying attention, you know exactly what's going to happen here. 11 inches times 5 strips is going to give us a total of 55 inches of paper. This is going to be a super chunky cone bead. Now I'll put glue on each of the 5 strip ends and carefully line them up so they lay very nicely. I'll smooth them down. And there is our chunky cone bead. Now that you are a cone-shaped paper bead master, go make beautiful things! Here on your screen are some projects that you might want to try. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more paper beading tutorials. See you next time!